what would I say to the claim that Solana is a meme casino? I would say zoom out. We have a thriving DeFi ecosystem on Solana. We have the largest DePIN ecosystem on any blockchain, specifically because it is fast and cheap. We have some of the highest stablecoin volumes. I'm not going to apologize for that.
Welcome to SolanaFloor. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
When did you come to Singapore? How long have you been here?
I've been in Singapore about 4 days this time around. I've been in Asia for close to a month. I was traveling for a number of other Solana events, presenting at WebEx, in Tokyo. I was presenting at Korea Blockchain Week in Seoul in South Korea a few weeks ago. Yeah, this week here in Singapore, I was presenting at Block Zero, which is the Solana Validators event. Here at Breakpoint, I'm moderating a debate in a couple days between founder Anatoly and Brian Long, who runs a well-known RPC company, Triton One, on whether or not 100 validators makes for a sufficiently decentralized L1. And then I myself am participating in a debate on whether or not we should dissolve the Solana Foundation.
Very interesting, both of those discussions, and I want to get your personal opinion on them before we hear the results on stage. So, Is 100 sufficient?
No, I don't believe that it is.
Is there a number, sort of turning point at which you say it is, or is the number that we're looking for a factor of something else?
I think it depends how you measure it, right? If it's not 100, does that mean it's 200? Does that mean it's 1,000 or 10,000? I think what makes this an interesting debate, are 100 validators enough to have a sufficiently decentralized L1, is that it's actually not black and white. 100 block producers may actually be enough to keep censorship resistance and safety from double spend on a sufficiently decentralized network. So that's the right layer, right? When you send transactions, you want to be guaranteed that it's going to land, it will be accepted, and no double spends will ever occur. On the read side, how many nodes do we want to be able to verify, and how easy to verify the chain, and how many RPCs, how many copies of the ledger? That I think should be well into the many thousands. That might end up looking like we have thousands of block producing nodes. As we do currently. There's, I think, 1,600 block producing nodes and about 4,000 or 5,000 RPCs and read nodes on the network.
So I like this sort of new format with discussions on stage with, binary choices presented to the audience and the panelists. But the most interesting one to me is Solana versus Ethereum. Which one's more future-proof? So which way do you lean?
Which chain is more future-proof, Solana versus Ethereum? I am fully in the Solana camp here. There's no question that Solana wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Ethereum. They paved the way. We stand on the shoulders of giants when we launched Solana in 2020. So Ethereum has 5 years of first mover advantage over Solana. But when you look at however you might refer to the L1, the world computer, the settlement layer, this censorship resistant, permissionless open network, all the buzzwords that you might want to use, one is distinctly faster and cheaper and easier to use than the other. And this has led to a proliferation of better technology integrations and faster adoption of end user applications and experimentation in what is really possible with the framework of the technology that we have developed.
From the way you're talking, and correct me if I'm wrong, I get the impression that you're more passionate about the technology and its potential than specific applications like Memecoins. Could be wrong on that. Maybe you're massively bullish on Memecoins, but it seems to be a bit of a divisive topic at the moment. Some people are saying it's net negative, some people are saying it's net positive. So where do you stand on Memecoins?
My opinion is a bit mixed on Memecoins. I think in every sort of cycle in crypto that we've seen so far, there's always been this path to rapid monetization that has been sort of unique to the cycle at hand, right? In 2017, we had ICOs. People in projects got lots of money really, really quickly, and this led to a proliferation of things, which ultimately kind of blew up in their face. In a couple years later, we had proliferation of DeFi tokens and compounding yield and things like that. We had the proliferation of NFT projects, JPEG and PFP-based NFTs. These also were ways for creators to rapidly monetize selling NFTs to collectors in their community. And in this cycle, we have Memecoins, which are also a way to, bring a lot of money to the creator of the project really, really rapidly, right? And because of this sort of hyper financialization, this has often led to a lot of negative outcomes for a lot of these projects. We've seen a lot of rugs and things like that, or promises undelivered of all sorts of things. So that aspect alone has been very frustrating and really challenging for a lot of people who are interested in the technology. However, the financial incentives, like all projects and a lot of these technologies, are driven by incentives and opportunities. And so what we saw with DeFi Summer, what we saw with proliferation of NFTs, what we saw with now meme coins, are sort of cutting edge and risky use cases and experimentation of the next generation of high performance blockchains or new standards, right? So when NFT standards proliferated, we got a lot of PFP projects and JPEGs, and it wasn't until maybe some of the dust settled after that boom where we're starting to see NFTs, in addition to being art and expression, also used for a lot more functional things. Identity tokens, authentication, loyalty, a lot of these other use cases people had contemplated before, but the sort of profit-seeking or monetary incentive motivated masses sort of kicked the door down for that early stage experimentation. Similarly with meme coins, and this is unique to Solana because Solana is so cheap, it's so easy to mint new tokens. It's so fast to mint new tokens that the first, obvious or left curve type use case is meme coins. But what other things can we do when you can do mass airdrops for pennies or mint 1 million different tokens in a single platform or in a few transactions for very, very cheap and distribute these for any number of use cases is still very early in the exploration space.
Critics of Solana might argue that because it's fast and cheap, it's allowed these sort of meme coins to proliferate, and it's brought attention and transaction volumes have gone up. But as a result of that, from the outside, it looks quite like an immature meme casino type of environment. Maybe Solana's, for these people, doomed to forever be a meme casino. What would you say to that?
What would I say to the claim that Solana is a meme casino? I would say zoom out. There is how much immature content exists on the internet, and we don't say, oh, well, the internet is only for, stupid memes or any other thing that, we can scoff at on the internet without indicting the technology that it's brought, right? We have a thriving DeFi ecosystem on Solana. We have the largest DePIN ecosystem on any blockchain exists on Solana, specifically because it is fast and cheap. We have some of the highest stablecoin volumes and stablecoin issuance on any chain. Meme coins maybe are the loudest and most garish at this moment, and therefore are capturing headlines. But to think that this is a forever thing is like a really disappointingly short-sighted crypto attention challenge, right? Forever? It's been how many months, right? This is decades-long impactful technology that people are just screwing around with right now. And I think it would be really unfortunate if a lot of people, formed long-term opinions, because anyone can do anything they want on the chain, on Solana, on Ethereum, on any other ecosystem. And because it's cheap means it's easier to do silly things and have a little bit of extra fun that I can't do because it's $50 for gas on ETH. I'm not going to apologize for that.
You mentioned a few verticals. I'm curious, which one excites you the most on a personal level out of DePIN, DeFi, RWAs? You've got the intersection of AI and blockchain, Web3 gaming, so on and so forth. So many different projects focusing on so many different applications and use cases. Yeah. Which one of them excites you the most on a personal level?
Personally, I'm most excited by DePIN. And I think part of that is just, it's my own interest, my background. I was a mechanical engineer, and in an earlier life, I've always been a hardware guy. I'm like, nuts and bolts kind of computer nerd. And so seeing, physical networks and physical resources, like Helium, for example, which is a distributed wireless network, or HiveMapper, which is doing GPS-enabled dash cams to collect street view data. There's a number of projects that are attempting to build like decentralized energy grids and storage and distribution mechanisms. Seeing the potential for more efficient physical networks, and these are often, kind of complex, cutting edge hardware technology enabled and accelerated by Solana, by this blockchain ecosystem that I have been involved in for so long, is just really exciting for me.
I'm curious, given your interest and what excites you the most being DePIN, do you see an increasing amount of DePIN projects over the next 12, 24 months coming around? And if so, do you think it's largely going to be focused on energy, or is it going to be telecommunications, or is it going to be mapping?
It's really hard to say what subsector of DePIN is going to see the biggest growth, but my guess, my assumption is we shouldn't underestimate how difficult, I'll say, like novel hardware manufacturing is at scale. And a lot of, I think where we might see some interesting growth in DePIN are technologies that from a hardware manufacturing standpoint either already exist or are close to existing, or just with some modifications, but can be rapidly scaled up and deployed by their producers or distributors more efficiently through DePIN-based incentives. So going back to Helium, for example, right? We've had 5G radios, we've had wireless hotspots. These are things that have existed for a while, but using them to deploy a 5G mesh network across the country was not economically viable until you add the DePIN token incentive layer, right? And so it's less a question of sort of manufacturing innovation and more about economic innovation to offer different products and services. For power distribution, there is already a lot of innovation happening in creating more efficient and lower cost solar cells and more efficient and higher density lithium batteries, right? These are things that are already happening, but what are the economics to distribute both on the supply and demand side of renewable, solar, renewable power and power storage can be bootstrapped and accelerated through DePIN incentives, which doesn't require rebuilding an entire factory. It just requires different innovation on the business model.
So DePIN excites us the most, but out of all those verticals that we discussed a little bit earlier, where do you see the highest growth potential?
I think the highest growth potential is in RWAs. And I say that because RWA is not one vertical. It is a myriad of different things. And to almost categorize RWA, real world asset. You know what is a real world asset? It's everything that's not crypto, right? Therefore, it's almost everything. Arguably, stablecoins were the original RWA, right? Stablecoins are tied to usually US dollars. If we want to bring an economy on chain or bring parts of an economy on chain, we need to have a way to represent and exchange and transact with assets that are not necessarily native or natively issued on the blockchain, right? And so we are seeing a tremendous amount of interest and adoption and integration from a lot of asset managers and issuers, and these are not just financial products, right? We have on Solana, there's a project called Baxis, which does fine spirits and wine and liquors tokenized. This is, it's an RWA product, and you can buy an NFT that represents a bottle of nice old whiskey as a means to track provenance and trade and build your collection. And the NFTs are redeemable for the act. You can redeem it, get shipped your bottle of whiskey. But in the meantime, you can trade and speculate and build your collection of spirits and wines. So there's a lot of really interesting things that I think people are now exploring when we can tokenize everything. And what is the growth when you can tokenize everything? It's literally all assets, physical or paper, that have been created.
So with all that in mind, if I was to ask you, which blockchain ecosystem, and I ask this at the risk of sounding like I'm promoting tribalism, I don't mean to, but which blockchain ecosystem do you think is most conducive to the proliferation of RWAs at such a scale that we can actually talk about bringing everything in the physical world on chain?
Which blockchain is most conducive to massive growth of RWAs? I would think that looking at sort of the technical fundamentals of a lot of these chains, it's which blockchain can support the creation of all of these assets represented as tokens, right? There's a lot of sort of economic considerations when you say, okay, we're going to mint NFTs by the millions, or we're going to create new tokens by the millions and distribute them to hundreds of millions of wallets each. There are real considerations, the sort of transaction costs, the minting costs, the account storage cost when you do something like that. And looking at those fundamentals, I think there's no better place for that kind of growth than Solana. We have seen, particularly with the recent release of both general account compression and compressed NFTs, which were released last year, brings the cost of NFT and token creation down by an order of thousands. It's 1,000 times cheaper or 10,000 times cheaper to create 1 billion NFTs for $1,000. So you can really contemplate the creation of so many different things sent to so many different addresses or wallets on chain. And I think this ability to scale, as well as, of course, transact with low costs and high speed, that ability to scale at the technical level is long-term more important consideration than which chain has, the more exciting commercial announcement this year about, hey, this company integrated over here, that company integrated over there.
Do you think Solana's still in need of a breakthrough moment, or are we long past that?
I think it's quite possible that the Solana ecosystem is in the midst of this tipping point of explosive growth right now. Present market conditions are going to be whatever they are, but if you look around here this week at Breakpoint at the number of product announcements and technical announcements, and these are all things that are coming from all parts of the community on so many different verticals, from so many different countries, with investment, both technical and capital, from so many different areas. It's really the consensus view, in my obviously biased opinion, that Solana is and has become the center of gravity for many different reasons of the crypto ecosystem. If I was going to call out one particular, I'll say, final breakthrough that I think is going to cement Solana's dominance presently and in the future, is the new validator, FireDancer. This is something that I've been talking about and been really excited about for a couple years. Solana is fast, Solana is cheap. We've talked about this for forever. That's always been Solana's sort of distinguishing quality, in addition to our incredible developer community and everything else that comes with it. But ultimately, if the L1 isn't fast and cheap and high performance and can offer distinct performance compared to any other blockchain ecosystem, then ultimately this will become commoditized. With FireDancer, Solana is looking at potentially 100x, 1,000x improvement in performance as far as total capacity for transactions per second, which is going to take a long time to really realize this. But the goal of FireDancer, the goal of Solana, and FireDancer is helping us move that forward, has always been that the network runs as fast as the underlying hardware can allow it, right? That there should be no bottlenecks in the software or baked into the protocol that says, you can send your transaction, but then these various things need to happen and they're going to take a minimum of 12 seconds or a minimum of X amount of time, or the protocol has to run through, several sequences of things before your transaction lands, right? With Solana, the goal has always been confirmation at the speed of light, which means as long as it takes to get information from a block producer on one side of the world to a validator on the opposite side of the world, that is your block time, that is your confirmation time, and that is as fast as data travels around the world, right? News goes from London to Singapore. It takes about 160 milliseconds for that information on a piece of fiber to go halfway around the world. And to go send a transaction from London to Singapore, hit the farthest validator in the world, and come all the way back is about 320 milliseconds. Currently, block times on Solana are 400 milliseconds, right? Are targeted for this one trip around the world latency, which is as fast as physics allows. And FireDancer and a lot of the associated advances that are coming with FireDancer, as well as some future enhancements, are really going to enable that. And that means that as hardware continues to get faster, Solana will always get faster, which means that Solana isn't just the fastest L1 today, it is the fastest L1 possible forever.
I want to ask you about the role of the foundation in supporting projects and the ecosystem as a whole. What are you working on at the foundation in terms of grants, in terms of supporting projects, in terms of helping people promote what they're doing? financially or socially? What are you working on day to day?
Right. So Foundation does a variety of things within the Solana ecosystem. The team itself is, I think, quite a bit smaller than most people realize. We have about 60 employees today. And what we primarily focus on are two things. One, funding open source public goods and developer tools and technical R&D that doesn't have, profit motivation. So what that looks like is funding R&D, the validator network. The foundation supports a lot of validator operators through our staking programs. We fund the creation of developer tools, developer education, developer outreach to make Solana more accessible to as many talented people as possible. We also, on the less technical side, on the sort of commercial and growth and integration side, we primarily act as a coordination entity. So we have the benefit working at the foundation of talking with lots and lots of projects all across the Solana ecosystem. And one of the highest benefit things we can do are simply hear a need from one project and know, project over here might actually be able to help you out with that, and just connect them, right? Acting as this connective tissue, coordinating and helping people help themselves. We don't really do this sort of pay to play kind of thing to draw projects on. We want people who, and we're seeing more and more projects, recognize the value of building on Solana is not because the Solana Foundation is here and will write you a grant. It's because this is the best place to build your product. There's a ton of users, there's a ton of developers, there's a ton of liquidity in every country. And we just want to help more people realize that and help get them connected and then send them off to the races.
Right. My understanding is the Solana Foundation is financially in quite a healthy position, and you can, if you choose, financially support projects. So what is the thought process that goes into deciding who gets a grant, and what types of projects can we expect to see getting funding from the foundation?
Yeah. How do we think about which projects to grant from the foundation? Most of our grant funding, as I said, goes to open source public goods or open source technical projects. So new integrations with new platforms, new programming languages, new data analytics. Often these are things that don't have a monetization path or a revenue path on their own, but will still add some holistic value to the Solana ecosystem. We do support some, I'll say, a limited number of initiatives, so building often the first of its kind type of products on Solana to sort of unblock or unlock a new vertical or a new use case. When you go from 0 to 1, first of its kind, and this is still admittedly quite a subjective classification, when there's no competitive market or we're moving into blue ocean territory on something, that's often something that we might be more interested in. But our primary general approach is not one of writing a check to any project that wants to come onto Solana, but rather helping them discover why this is valuable for their own reasons. Because those are the kind of projects that will stick with Solana because they're here for the right reasons, not because, Solana Foundation offered me a grant of this number of dollars and some other foundation offered me a grant for some other number of dollars. Every time we've had that kind of conversation, the answer is, no, thank you, we're not interested, right? We don't pay or grant in that fashion. And as a result, when Solana has had its challenges, and it certainly has had many of challenges, we know that the people that are building here are here because they want to be here. And that has helped build this incredibly resilient and vibrant community, an ecosystem of projects and products.
Can you share some alpha with us?
I think nobody is bullish enough on FireDancer. What's not so understood about FireDancer is less about maybe what the performance numbers might be today, but what this really unlocks for Solana's future scaling to not just be the fastest L1 today, but to be the fastest L1 forever.
Clear. Thank you so much for making time to talk to us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.